Today, I'm going to be testing out the moss flower coarse whetstone from our mining adventures in Indonesia. This is very comparable to auto stones from Japan. So there's a few factors that come into play, but it's generally considered coarse or arato or aratoishi if you're comparing to Japan stones. And I would rate this stone somewhere around 1000 grit. Now, depending on what surfacing you texture the stone with, 140 or 120 grit approximately from the Atoma diamond plate makes this stone very fast, so 600 to 1000 grit. However, with a smoother diamond plate like this 600 or finer, you get 1000, maybe 2000 grit range. You can see that it's a very, very easy to slurry stone, and it gets super muddy very quickly. Very easy to generate mud. And I'm sure you guys can hear that sound. It's slightly coarse and scratchy sounding under the diamond plate. Easy to get very thick mud. Nothing too fancy, just testing the sharpening with this Japanese knife. With slurry, you get a little bit faster cutting action. The stone has a slightly sandy and scratchy feel, and it removes metal pretty quickly. If you're a beginner sharpener, you might get more out of going for a 1000 grit synthetic stone. If you want to be cheap, try a king whetstone. If you want to spend a little bit more money, go with the Naniwa Chosera line or the Naniwa Professional. 1000 grit man-made stone is not going to have quite the same quirks that a coarse natural stone will have. But if you're feeling adventurous or you're a little more familiar with sharpening, this is a really fun stone to have in your lineup. If you use more pressure, the stone's going to sharpen a lot more coarse. You can hear the sound difference between firmer pressure and lighter pressure like that. And if you're working on just basic use tasks like keeping your edge sharp, then a stone like this is more than enough. You don't really need to go up into the higher grit ranges past 1000 or 2000 grit. I really recommend these stones, just basic tasks, rougher sharpening work. If you want to get into polishing, you can use a natural stone that's a lower grit range like this to help transition away from synthetic scratch patterns on your knife and work towards more of a hazy polish. This stone pairs very nicely with the medium to fine ivory grit whetstones that we also have from Indonesia. And if you're working on doing your sharpening progression and you want to do natural stones, you could go to the moss flower for coarse work, and then you could finish on the yellow ivory stones, or if you want to take it to a super level of polish, then you could go to one of the white ivory stones next. And I'm going to make some more videos about that in the future, so I'm not going to get too carried away talking about stone progressions. Going into surface conditioning, you'll hear a big difference. Slurrying the stone with a 600 grit diamond plate, you get a silky, kind of creamier feel. The stone is still going to cut at a coarse level, but the surface condition like that tones it down a little bit. Main reason I would caution you if you're just getting into sharpening stones about going with a natural stone is sometimes these coarse stones are a little bit inconsistent. So some parts in the stone may cut slightly faster than other parts. And you might also come across areas of the stone where a little pit is in the stone. That's because of the formation and gases escaping when the stone was formed under pressure. So little spots like that can kind of be troublesome and just a little bit more of a headache if you're brand new to sharpening. This stone really doesn't generate much mud on its own. It's a very hard stone, so that kind of helps you not gouge into it while you're sharpening. It's not going to release grit and get as muddy as softer stones, but that's not really an issue if you have a way to create slurry with your diamond plate. The other main key part of that is that opens the grit of the stone. So you'll see that when you sharpen, slowly the stone gets smoother with use, and that's kind of what you'll go to if you max out the performance of the stone. Now, a lot of people have a lot of sharpening stones in their progression, but they don't spend a lot of time learning how to max each stone. So if you just buy a coarser natural stone, play with the different feel and the feedback, you're going to get different results with different surface textures. So even sharpening a harder steel like this, I do see nice streaks of metal on the surface with each sharpening stroke. And it's not the fastest stone in the world. I would put its speed at medium or slow, but it does have a really nice feel to it, and it's a very beautiful stone. So fun to play with, something cool to consider adding to your arsenal. We're gonna have these stones in 8x3 size, and I'm most likely going to have the mining team send me less tall stones. So it's not likely that we're going to do a lot of the 2-inch height on these because you really don't need all that extra thickness. I got this one for my personal collection, and then another collector actually bought it off of me. So generally speaking, we're probably gonna have these in that 1-inch height because it makes the shipping way better, and it lets us get a lot more of these stones up here in inventory. This knife I take a little more care with because it's a nicer blade. I like that Damascus pattern, and I'm kind of a little more cautious as I sharpen it. So let's see what kind of results we got with that. Nice. Now, if you want a higher level of sharpness and more refinement, that's where you would go to a finer stone next. Where a coarse natural stone like this falls into your progression is near the beginning. This could be your very first stone that you sharpen with. You could place this right after something like a 600 or 1000 grit man-made stone. You're definitely going to get finer results going to this than if you stay at like the synthetic 1000 grit range. Part of that is because the stone's grit rating changes. So with letting it burnish a little bit and get some metal in the surface, that grooms the texture. It makes the stone's grain finer, and this stone doesn't really release a lot of grit on its own. So that lets you eke out different levels of performance. You can use that rough texture to get a bitey edge. You can hear that really nice sandy sound. And I'm gonna see nice big streaks of metal on the surface of my stone with each one of those strokes. So again, if you're a beginner, we're going to have these in a very affordable size and price range. And we're going to put these stones on pre-order because it's going to take a month or two for our next big bulk order of several hundred stones and various grits to get here. So if you're interested in getting a nice little savings, maybe 25%, you don't mind not picking out your exact stone, you can pre-order these. So I'm going to put a pre-order option on wildwhetstones.com. And if you are picky and you want to choose the exact patterns, then we'll have them listed as instantly available when they get here. And if you want to pre-order and have us hold your spot and pay less for ordering up front, then you can do that too. It'll be 8x3x1 instead of 8x3x2. So that'll look closer to this size. I've mounted this stone to a board and sealed it. You don't have to seal these coarser stones. They don't seem to hold and absorb water too badly. You could seal it if you want to, just take extra caution, but they're very dense stones, and so is the ivory, honestly. I just sealed this stone because I like the look of it, and I wanted to give it a little extra protection. So 8x3x1 size, we're gonna put these on the website, give you guys the option for pre-order, and they're gonna all look very similar. It's gonna be this darker, mossy kind of a pattern. And some of these stones have nice streaks in them. You'll see some yellows and blues, and they're all very, very similar. So not a huge difference, but if you're picky and you wanna see the exact surface patterns you're getting, then you can wait, and in about 6 or 8 weeks, we should have individually listed for these. In the meantime, I'm just going to make a pre-order option with a discount. So if you want to snag one of these coarse stones, we're going to put those up on the website really soon here. Great stone for just taking care of knives. You could use this for earlier coarse work if you're working on razors or chisels. Surface to work really nicely with those different texture changes we talked about. And the slurry kind of increases the polish, especially if you use a slurry stone that's finer. So hopefully you guys have a basic idea of what this coarse moss flower stone can do. It's not going to be a finishing stone. You're not going to want to try to use this for high level polishing, because that 1,000 to 2,000 grit range is really just kind of for reshaping a bevel, doing some early grinding work, and getting a toothy working edge. So if you don't need a fine polishing stone, like if you don't need something that's in the 8,000 or finer grit range, like the ivory stones, this is a great option. If you're just doing basic sharpening for kitchen knives, stainless steel and carbon steel, these work great. So let me know what you guys think about this stone down in the comments. If you're gonna pre-order, give us a shout, and help me help you. Tell me what parts about that option help you make your decision. And if you're the kind of person who really likes to choose your own patterns in the stone, let me know why that makes you prefer to just pay that maybe 25% extra. Probably around $150 for the price range on these, maybe a little bit less. And with that pre-order, you're gonna save some money if you don't mind waiting for about a month and a half. So we'll get these stones available for you guys really soon. We're gonna have about 60 in inventory, and I think I'll put about half of those as what's in stock for pre-ordering. So that way we won't sell them all out just via pre-order. So if you're one of the guys who voted in the group that you wanted to pick your stone individually, don't worry, I'm not gonna sell them all out on a pre-order sale. We're gonna save about half that batch and give you guys the chance to pick exactly which one you want. Just again, a final overview. I would place this stone between 600 and 1,000 grit when it's slurried with something that's coarse. Slurry the stone with a finer grit diamond plate or a Tomo Nagura, and you're gonna max out the polishing abilities closer to 2,000 grit. So basic kitchen tasks, or maybe doing rougher grinding stages on a knife before you transition to a finer stone, this is great. And also with some firm pressure, it's definitely fast enough to do bevel setting work. Again, if you're a very novice level sharpener, you might like a synthetic 1,000 a little bit better, just because you won't have to deal with learning how natural stones work and the grit changing. So that grit rating on these is approximate, not exact. Hopefully that helps you guys out in your understanding of stones. And let me know what you guys want to see in the next video. If this helped you out, give us a comment, good or bad, I don't care, it all helps the algorithm. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're looking to order one of these stones, we'll have them on wildwhetstones.com. If you subscribe to the email list on the homepage, we won't share or sell your information, but you can get a notification for inventory updates. Stay sharp. We'll see you guys soon.